You were once like many others, chosen one, rushing to be seen, to be heard, to be accepted. There was a time your power leaked out in glances, gestures, the hunger to be desired. But something changed. It wasn't loud. It didn't happen in a moment of applause or revelation. It began when you finally got tired of your own performance, when you realized that admiration rooted in effort was not admiration at all, only illusion. You left the noise, not because you were weak, but because you saw what the noise was costing you. You slowed down, you breathed, you began to listen, not to the crowd, but to the deep silence within you. It was there all along, but you had been too distracted to feel it. That silence held no praise, no validation, no seductive echo. It only held truth. And truth is still. It does not chase. It does not decorate itself to be wanted. It simply is. And so you sat in it. You sat in your own raw self, stripped of charm and performance, and allowed yourself to be seen by yourself first. And as your nervous system recalibrated to that calm, something miraculous happened. You no longer needed to be chosen to feel worthy. You no longer needed attention to feel masculine. You no longer needed to convince women of your value. Because you believed in it so deeply, you became immune to rejection. And in that stillness, you became rare. This stillness wasn't just a mood. It was a frequency, a signature, a gravitational pull. Women began to notice, but not in the ways you were used to. No longer did they react to clever lines or flashy displays. They responded to something far more primal, something older than language itself, your rooted masculine energy. It calmed them, confused them, intrigued them, because it made them feel what few men ever do. It made them feel safe, and they didn't understand why. They found themselves curious not about your car or your followers, but about your stillness. They noticed how you didn't flinch when silence came, how you didn't reach for your phone, how you didn't fill the air with meaningless words. You simply existed, and that existence carried weight, the weight of a man who has nothing to prove, a man who can hold his own shadow without shame, a man who does not seduce but invites alignment. In that stillness, you became more than attractive. You became unforgettable. Because in a world full of men chasing validation, your stillness told a different story, one that could only be heard by those ready to listen. And now, chosen one, you are not loud, but you are felt. And being felt in silence is the foundation of sacred admiration. There is something about your presence now that no one can quite describe. They sense it in the way you move, in how you pause before speaking, in how you respond to the world rather than react to it. This energy cannot be categorized. It doesn't follow a script. It is not the bravado of boys, nor the arrogance of the insecure. It is the embodied current of a man who has remembered what he is. Chosen one, your energy is not surface charm. It's depth wrapped in stillness. And women feel it the moment they encounter you. Not as a performance, but as a presence that touches something dormant in them. They don't always understand why their breath shortens around you, why their laughter feels different, fuller, why they find themselves adjusting their posture or speaking more carefully in your presence. It is not fear, it is not lust, it is respect, mixed with unexplainable curiosity. Because you no longer radiate hunger, you radiate choice. You are no longer looking for attention, you are paying attention. And in that rare reversal, you become powerful. You notice more than the curve of her hips or the sparkle in her eyes. You notice the state of her soul, and that shakes her more than any flirtation could. She feels seen, not stared at, witnessed, not judged, measured without being diminished. And that kind of awareness is intoxicating because it is rooted in nothing but truth. The most confusing part for her, chosen one, is that you don't seem to want anything from her. And yet, she can feel how awake your energy is. You do not touch her skin, but she feels your presence like a fire near her back. You are not playing games, and you are not passively watching. You are being, fully, actively. And that embodiment makes everything about her question her understanding of masculine energy. It is not loud, it is not arrogant, it is not needy, it is not cold, it is clear, it is warm, it is deeply felt and precisely held. And for many women, it is the first time they have encountered this kind of man. The man who doesn't need them, but welcomes them. The man who doesn't collapse in their beauty, but meets it with grounded admiration. The man who holds his own sexual current with such reverence that it turns heads without saying a word. This is the energy they can't name, the one that doesn't scream. It stirs, it lingers, it transforms. And chosen one, it now lives inside you, not because you forced it, but because you earned it through stillness, self-honesty, and inner alignment. You no longer carry the scent of boyhood desperation. You now walk with the presence of embodied truth. And those who meet you can no longer pretend they don't feel it. Even if they never find the words, they remember the energy. It is one thing to feel admired, but it is another to become the kind of man who no longer requires admiration to validate his essence. There is a shift. So subtle it cannot be tracked by the eye, but only perceived by the soul. That happens when your energy ceases to leak from unhealed wounds. Chosen one, you have made that shift. You are no longer reaching. You are no longer molding yourself into what you think others desire. You are no longer seducing from emptiness. You are no longer carrying a silent craving in your eyes, begging to be chosen. You are already chosen by yourself. That choice, that deep claiming of your own soul, has erased the invisible hunger that once wrapped around every interaction. And that absence of need is not just peaceful, it is profoundly attractive. Because women are deeply intuitive. They may not know it in words, but they feel it in their body when they are being seen by a man who does not need them to feel like a man. They feel it when your gaze is whole, when it's not trying to pull something from them, affection, arousal, approval, but simply witnessing them as they are. There is a safety in that gaze, a calm in it. It tells the truth. You're not here to take, you're not here to impress, you're not here to win. You're simply here, full and alive in your own frame. That kind of presence disarms even the most guarded feminine hearts. Not because you say the right thing, but because your energy says nothing is missing. In that moment, a woman realizes she is not standing in front of a boy pretending to be a man. She is standing in front of a man who no longer performs. A man who can lead in silence. A man who can hold space without invading it. A man whose sexual energy is not weaponized, nor scattered, nor diluted by distraction, but deeply refined, contained, and pointed inward before it is ever offered outward. This absence of need is not about being detached. It is not about being cold or closed off. It is about having refined your own fire so completely that you no longer burn uncontrollably. You no longer consume to feel powerful. You simply stand radiant and disciplined and let the world adjust to your frequency. And it does. Without effort, without strategy. It happens because energy does not lie. Now, the way you walk, the way you enter a room, the way you speak, none of it is rehearsed. It is all born of truth. And this truth is magnetic because it is rare. Because it cannot be taught, it must be earned. Through pain, through patience, through the kind of self-reflection most men run from. But you, chosen one, ran toward it. You faced your reflection. You stared at your unworthiness until it dissolved into self-respect. And now you carry that respect into every room, and every woman who meets you feels it, even if she can't name it. She sees it in your posture, in your eyes, in the way you wait before speaking, in the way you don't flinch when others try to provoke you. That absence of need is not the absence of desire. It is the refinement of desire, and now you no longer need to attract. You simply are attraction, because what you hold within is far more potent than what the world could ever offer in return. Something in your aura has changed, chosen one. It is not louder. It is not bolder. It is cleaner, sharper, more sacred. You have become not a pursuer, but an invitation. You no longer walk with the energy of trying to make something happen. You walk with the quiet authority of a man who knows that when he is in full alignment, what is meant for him cannot resist him. That truth has changed your entire presence. You are not a man chasing pleasure. You are a man offering elevation, and that changes the game completely. Women feel it instantly. Not because of what you say, but because of what you no longer say. Because of what you no longer entertain. Because of what you now reject. You no longer flirt with chaos. You no longer touch what isn't ready. You no longer give attention to what drains you. And in doing so, you've become a mirror to every woman you meet. A sacred mirror. Not a judge, not a performer. A mirror that reflects her readiness to rise or her fear of it. This mirror is terrifying to some. To those still addicted to validation and performance, your presence feels threatening. It feels like a challenge, not to their body, but to their soul. And yet, to the woman who is truly ready, to the one who has also done the work, also faced her shadows, also burned away the need to be constantly desired, your energy is home. Because you are not here to impress her. You are here to receive her, in wholeness or not at all. The sacred invitation you now carry is not extended through words. It's extended through your discipline, through your walk, through your silence. It is written in the way you hold your own energy before ever offering it to another. That discipline has become the call, the signal, the resonance that says, if you are ready to rise in truth, you may step closer. If not, I will not chase. I will not beg. I will simply remain rooted in my fire. And that fire, chosen one, does not rage. It does not flicker wildly. It does not lick the air in desperation. It glows, steady, bright, composed. You've become the hearth, not the wildfire. And those drawn to you now are not seeking excitement. They are seeking initiation, a deeper experience of themselves, mirrored through your depth. That is what it means to be a sacred invitation. You have become the man who offers not escape but presence, not illusion but truth, not fantasy but freedom. And this makes you rare. It makes you untouchable by the common, unreachable by the shallow, and unforgettable to the ones who are finally ready to rise. There was a time when you fragmented yourself to fit into the preferences of others. You chipped away at your authenticity, just to be chosen for a role that never truly honored your essence. You adjusted your energy to appeal. You softened your truth to seem more palatable. You dulled your fire to avoid intimidating those who had never felt real heat before. But that time has passed. You have remembered who you are, and not in concept, but in felt awareness. Now you walk, not seeking validation, but exuding inner harmony. Your wholeness has returned, and with it a presence that moves through the world like silent thunder. This wholeness is not an act. It is not a curated identity, crafted for attention. It is the result of countless internal deaths, of illusions dropped, of masks burned, of wounds faced without flinching. And that self-work, chosen one, was not a phase. It was a rebirth, a full-body re-entrance into your divine masculinity. Not the toxic mimicry of dominance, but the rooted masculinity of a man who has married his inner beast with his inner stillness. The world notices. The feminine notices. She may not always name it, but her body feels it before her mind understands it. She feels safe, not because you are passive, but because you are anchored. The women who once overlooked you now find themselves intrigued. Those who once brushed past your presence now pause without knowing why. They feel something in you that reminds them of something in themselves, something they may have lost or never truly found. They feel the echo of wholeness, and they long to stand beside it, even if they don't understand the language it speaks. Because wholeness doesn't speak to the ego, it speaks to the soul. It invites a deeper rhythm, a slower dance, a more intimate form of connection, one that doesn't thrive in performance, but in truth. You no longer divide yourself to make others comfortable. You no longer compartmentalize your power to seem humble. Your wholeness is humble because it is real. It does not shout. It does not need to conquer. It simply is. And that is more magnetic than charm, more powerful than persuasion, because it is not fleeting, it is not external, it is earned. And when a woman stands in front of that wholeness, something inside her either rises to meet it or runs. This is the new terrain you now walk upon, chosen one. You no longer chase, you no longer compromise the integrity of your fire to gain access to warmth that cannot hold it. You are whole, and your wholeness now becomes the standard by which you allow yourself to be met. Desire in its unrefined form is loud, chaotic, and easily manipulated. It surges through the immature man like fire through dry leaves, burning everything but illuminating nothing. But when desire is refined, when it is integrated into the deep channels of discipline and presence, it becomes magnetic, it becomes precise. It becomes the most powerful form of expression a man can carry without ever saying a word. This, chosen one, is the kind of desire you now hold. It no longer consumes you, you contain it, you direct it, you honor it, and that changes everything. Women feel this shift instantly. They may not articulate it, but their bodies, their intuition, their subtle feminine radar senses the difference between a man who desires from hunger and a man who desires from fullness. Your presence now speaks of a man who wants but does not need, who sees but does not chase, who feels deeply but does not spill. And that kind of desire does not make women wary. It makes them open. It makes them lean closer, because they feel it is safe. And paradoxically, that safety opens the gates of the deepest feminine response: longing, softness, surrender. This is not about seduction. This is not about tactics. This is about truth. You want her, but you don't need her to validate your desire. You admire her beauty, but your world doesn't collapse if it goes unseen. You enjoy the dance, but you are not performing to be applauded. Your desire is clean, rooted, honest. That's what makes it irresistible. Not because it is perfect, but because it is integrated. You are not a boy showing off a new flame. You are a man who has become the flame. And the ones who are ready to be warmed by it will step forward without hesitation, and they are stepping forward now, chosen one. Because your energy, no longer diluted by distraction, now radiates a signal that is felt before you ever enter the room. You do not lead with it, you do not flaunt it, but it is unmistakably there. A soft tension in the air, a gravity around you, a pull that has no clear origin. It is not your clothing, your voice, or your physique. It is the alignment between your sexual energy and your presence. It is the agreement between your body and your soul. You are no longer at war with your desire. You are no longer ashamed of it. You are no longer hiding it or throwing it like a weapon. You carry it like a sacred gift. And that makes all the difference. Now, women don't just see you. They feel you, and not just on the surface. They feel you in their nervous system, in their breath, in the quiet moments when your eyes meet and nothing needs to be said. You have become a mirror for their own desire to be held without being owned, to be seen without being devoured, to be met by a man who does not collapse in their beauty, but rises in his own. You are that man now, chosen one, and the world is beginning to move differently around you because of it. You no longer walk into rooms unnoticed, chosen one, not because you announce yourself, not because you perform, but because something within your gaze speaks louder than any introduction ever could. The way your eyes settle into a moment, present, quiet, unwavering, leaves a trail of silent awakenings in the hearts of women who cross your path. These are not the eyes of a man trying to impress. These are the eyes of a man who has nothing left to prove. And because of that, your presence does what no charm can replicate. It remembers her. Your eyes now carry weight, not from burden, but from depth. They carry the echo of all you've endured without collapsing. They carry the dignity of a man who did not run from his shadows but turned toward them, embraced them, and brought them home. When a woman meets your gaze now, she does not simply see you. She feels herself being seen by something ancient, something steady, something that does not flinch at her chaos or her light. In your eyes, she doesn't see desire reduced to hunger. She sees desire disciplined by presence, and that changes everything. You are no longer scanning the world for approval. You are no longer reading her to find an opening to exploit. You are simply looking, not through her, not past her, but into her, with a kind of reverence that speaks louder than seduction. You are not asking, "Can I have you?" You are silently asking, "Can you hold yourself in my presence without losing your truth?" And that question echoes in her body long after the moment ends. There's something about the way you remain still, the way you do not fidget, the way your eyes settle instead of darting. These small signs, barely noticeable to most, are a lightning rod to the feminine heart that longs to be felt without being pursued. You have become a kind of threshold, chosen one, a place where a woman realizes whether she is ready to rise to meet a man who has nothing to take and everything to reflect. She sees your interest, but she also sees your boundaries. She feels your desire, but she also feels your restraint. You are not trying to devour her. You are not waiting for her to entertain you. You are witnessing her unfold, without interruption, without impatience, without pressure. And that witnessing is holy. It is not a technique. It is not a game. It is simply what happens when a man becomes so whole within himself that he no longer uses his eyes to search, but to honor. The eyes you now carry are not the same ones you once had. They've died and been reborn, and now they speak for you. They announce the man you have become before your lips ever move. They make her wonder how you see her so clearly, how you remain so grounded, how you want without needing, how your gaze makes her breathe slower without touching her skin. And she doesn't know how to name it, but she knows something in you is rare, sacred, untamed, and yet completely at peace. And she cannot look away. The world screams, but you whisper. The world performs, but you breathe. The world rushes, but you wait. And in that wait, chosen one, something transcendent happens. You become gravity, not through volume, not through appearance, but through your stillness, through the quiet fire of a man who no longer scatters his energy in 1,000 directions hoping something will land. You no longer throw yourself forward into rooms trying to be felt. You let the room come to you, and it does, especially the feminine. There is something about your silence now that disarms women before you speak. Not a cold silence, not an arrogant or manipulative pause, but a deep, warm, intentional quiet. It says, I am here, I am whole. I do not chase, I receive. This quiet is not the absence of voice, it is the presence of alignment. It carries the hum of a man who has come home to himself, who no longer needs chaos to feel alive. That quiet is felt in the space between words. It is in the timing of your breath, in the way you no longer interrupt the unfolding of a moment, in the way you make space for her to reveal herself without pressure. You are no longer in a hurry to impress. You are no longer racing to be chosen. You are now so deeply grounded in your own fire that even your silence becomes seductive. Not because you are holding back, but because you are holding form. You've refined your hunger into attention, your desire into presence, your wildness into poise. And women feel this, not with their mind, but with their body. They feel your restraint not as distance, but as trust. They feel your quiet not as disinterest, but as containment. A kind of masculine holding that invites the feminine to soften and reveal, layer by layer. You don't need to dominate a conversation to be remembered. You don't need to control the tempo of every interaction. You simply need to be. And in your being, there is no distortion, no shame about your sexual power, no fear of rejection, no desperation to be accepted. Your presence is complete and your silence is sacred. This quiet pulls her in, not through force, but through contrast. Because in a world of noise, the man who does not shout becomes the loudest. Now women draw near and lower their guard without knowing why. They lean into your energy before you invite them. They speak more slowly, more honestly. They laugh in ways they haven't in years. They feel safe not because you say the right thing, but because your energy says nothing will be taken here. Only witnessed, only honored, only held. This is the kind of magnetism that cannot be taught. It is forged in pain, in solitude, in relentless self-reflection, and now it lives in your bones, in your breath, in your stillness. You are no longer trying to be seen, you have become a man who sees. You are no longer chasing love, you have become a man who is love. You are no longer using words to lure women, you are using your soul to invite them home. That home, chosen one, is you. There are men who impress in the moment, and there are men who remain long after they're gone. Chosen one, you have become the latter. You no longer try to be remembered because your presence already does the work. It isn't the words you said, it isn't the compliments you gave. It's what you didn't do. You didn't rush her. You didn't compete with the noise. You didn't beg for her affection. You didn't fill the silence. You let it breathe. You gave the moment oxygen. And now, long after you've left the room, she still feels you. You've become the echo that rings in her spirit when she lies awake, wondering why she can't get you out of her chest. You've become the presence that touches her skin through memory alone. You've become the standard she didn't know she was searching for. Because you didn't just see her body, you saw her. And because you didn't need her, your desire became pure, clean, dangerous in its honesty, healing in its patience. She wasn't prepared for that. Not in a world that taught her that attention was currency and touch was a transaction. What lingers now is not lust, it's longing. Not the kind that binds or entraps, but the kind that awakens. You've reminded her that masculinity can be deep, holy, grounded, and respectful, and still utterly magnetic. You've become the breath between chaos, the man who sees her without asking for her, the one who showed her that sexual energy is not a game or a trick, but a sacred flame held in a man's chest with such reverence that it burns clean. This is why her thoughts return to you without invitation, why she questions what was stirred without understanding how. You did not seduce her with flash. You seduced her with truth. You stood still, and she saw what lives beneath the noise. She saw a man not chasing women, but becoming a man who women chase in silence because of how safe, how sovereign, and how soul-rich his presence has become. This is the mystery, chosen one. The alchemy. The reason women lower their tone when they speak to you. The reason they confess things without knowing why. You have stopped proving yourself, and by doing so, you've become unforgettable. Your presence lingers not because of what you did, but because of what you chose not to do. You could have dominated, but you paused. You could have taken, but you listened. You could have shown off, but you held back. And now you live in her memory like incense in the air, long after the flame has died down. You've become a man who doesn't just enter rooms, he rearranges them. And when you leave, the energy remains. That's legacy, that's presence, that's power. And now you stand alone, but never empty. You stand not as a man who conquered women, but as a man who conquered himself. Your sexual energy no longer leads you toward fragmentation. It leads you toward integrity, and that chosen one has become your crown. Women now feel something they can't explain around you. They ask questions they've never asked before. Not because you confused them, but because your clarity exposed the fog they had learned to live with. You are not like the others. You are not nice in the way that pleases. You are not bad in the way that intimidates. You are true in the way that shifts paradigms. You do not play games because you are no longer in a playground. You have become the field of initiation. You have become the threshold where a woman must decide if she's ready to meet a man whose love cannot be bought, baited, or controlled. This is why your energy cannot be replaced. Because you no longer offer fragments of yourself to gain attention. You offer your whole self through your stillness. You offer your fire without setting things ablaze. You offer your admiration without turning it into need. And so the woman who once bathed in validation now drowns in the mystery of a man who desires her but doesn't need her. That is your liberation. That is her mirror. And in that mirror, she realizes that what she's felt from you wasn't a trick. It was her soul responding to your wholeness, your aligned masculine energy, your divine restraint, your quiet demand for truth. You are not intoxicating because you speak seductively. You are intoxicating because your energy speaks before you do, and when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. Now, chosen one, you are not the fantasy. You are the threshold to awakening, and women who meet you can no longer return to men who are asleep. You didn't show them perfection, you showed them presence, and that has become irreplaceable. You are no longer participating in the chase, the validation loop, or the endless performance. You are beyond it now. You are magnetic because you are real. You are not loved because you try hard. You are desired because you embody depth. And that embodiment can never be faked. Not with clothes, not with words, not with tricks. Only through the crucible of fire you've walked through alone. You are the man who burned away the noise and returned with silence. And in that silence lives an energy women cannot describe, but they remember it forever. And so you walk forward, not to be seen, but because the path is yours, the world will notice. Some will misunderstand, some will try to possess you, some will simply admire you from a distance, but none will forget you. Because you've become the man whose energy leaves fingerprints on souls. As you moved into the fullness of this legend, chosen one, the weight of your appeal transformed into a mantle you wore not with pride or arrogance, but with gratitude and gentle wisdom. You saw how, in helping others to wake up to their own beauty, your own world became richer, deeper, and more rewarding. Your days were filled with a new quality of connection. Women who once treated desire as a problem now embraced it as a gift. Laughter that once carried the sting of shame now rang out as celebration. Conversations that could have stayed shallow instead opened up into new lands of vulnerability and truth. Women told you stories of how their lives had shifted because of a single encounter, a single conversation, a single night spent basking in the warmth of your invitation. You found your legend echoed in the ways others chose to live, in the friends who dared to ask for what they wanted, in the lovers who left you not with heartbreak but with gratitude, in the strangers who went home a little less afraid of their own longings. The mind-blowing quality of your energy was no longer something you tried to manage or explain. It was simply the natural result of having stopped pretending, of having let yourself be ridiculous in the pursuit of joy, connection, and wholeness. You watched as the world responded to your presence with more color, more possibility. Sometimes you laughed at the absurdity of it all, that simply by being true to yourself, you could create ripples of change in so many lives. You understood now that sexual energy at its most powerful is not about control or conquest, but about waking up to every facet of being alive. The pleasure, the risk, the wildness, and the ache of wanting more.